Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. So this is automating your data in a lazy way. So VROps and VRO is the topic. First, this is me. My name is Michael Ryom. I work with Proact here in Denmark. I'm a cloud architect, a consultant. VROps is one of the topics I do most things on. Some login side as well. Been working with VMUG products for 10 years now. Working for Proact a year only, but I also do a bit of blogging on michaelryom.dk, and you can hit me on Twitter if any question afterwards. So the first question is what? So I hope everybody knows what VROps is. So this is analytics and intelligence about your data center. So we want to do, what we want to use that for is to find a way to actually use it not only to reporting and for management purposes, but we want to do the automation, if you will, of your data center this way. So why do we want to do that? So the main reason we want to do that is we want to skip some of the regular stuff we need to do to maintain our data centers and not having to do all the manual boring tasks. So we want to automate it as much as possible, hopefully free up our time to do other stuff. I talked to a guy today who said, well, you basically want to make sure I get fired, and well, that's not the point. If you think you get fired by this, you probably should get fired anyway. This is to do with removing the boring stuff and making sure your data center runs as smoothly as possible. And this is just one way to do it. So what options do we have? So there are a few options. Those of you who heard Simon Eady talk earlier today, he had a session where he talked about the automation framework, which is built into VROps. I'm going to show you some of the other options, and then I'm going to talk about the VRO option. So first off, the automation framework, for those who don't know it, is a framework built into VROps. It's a predefined set of workflows that can be executed. These can be executed either manually, so you can set you want to enable this option on a given alert, and then you can have a button you can click on which does the recommended action. So that's not really automation, that's just orchestrating some of the tasks. And frankly, how much time does it take for us to click on a VM and edit settings and add in a few extra CPUs? Not a lot. So in my opinion, this is useful, but not really adding any real value to the data center and our daily operations. But if you do it this way, this is a picture of the policy page. So you go in and you enable it on a per alert basics. So you have the full control of what is automated and what is not. So why I don't like this is because it's locked down. You get a set of workflows, and that's what you can execute. You can't just put in your own workflow and then execute like a PowerShell script or something. You have to do, well, there are ways to do it, but it's not something that is publicly available. So you're basically stuck with what VMware has put into the product, and if you don't like it for some reason, or it doesn't work for you, there could be multiple reasons. There could be that you're enabling automation, and you have a VM running Windows NT, and you try to hard add something to it, and Windows NT will probably just crash. So that's not what we want out of automation. We wanted to make it simpler for us. We just didn't want to make it more complicated. So there are no checks, for instance, for what OS you're running in these scripts. That makes it locked down and harder for us to really use. So the good thing is it's easy to use. So if you have a use case for it and you're not running old OS, then you'll have full control of what OSs you're running. Well, it's easy to use, and then by all means skip what I'm going to say next and just use it, because it's much easier. Simon also mentioned this in his session. So he'll be doing a VROPS series for the past 6 months, and for the past 11 months. And in March, I guess, he did a session with Sunny Dua on using this action framework. So if you want to know more about the inbuilt capabilities, this is a way to go. Also, if you want to know more about VROPS, these are 1-hour sessions, and so far there have been 11, covering different topics. So a good way to start if you want to know more. Another way you can do it, automation with VROPS, is there is a solution on solutionexchange.vmware.com where you can download, and it comes with a preset of workflows, and it actually uses VRO, it integrates with VRO. Again, the problem here is that you are stuck with what VMware again provided with you. It's not a free solution, so you can't pick and choose what you want, but it's available, and it integrates, and you can see some of the things integrate with VRA, so you can do this auto scaling, and our different other different tasks like snapshots, so that you can do automation based on. I really don't like it as well because we have essentially no real idea of what's happening. Of course, you could go in and look at all the text files. It's basically text files with a lot of scripting, and you could see what it does, but it's really undocumented, and there's no easy way to extend this to what you really want to have. You want to have a workflow which is automated in a fashion that suits your business and not what was showcased. And that's mainly what this is, a way to showcase what VMware can do with their products. So onwards to VROPS and VRO. So the reason to choose VRO is this is the orchestration engine for VMware's products. So this is the way to go if you want to orchestrate anything. It's fairly simple, I say, to use. You do have to have some know-how of how JavaScript, for instance, work, but that comes with a lot of built-in actions which you can use in order to go get up and running quickly. So this is what you want. This is what your business requires. This is how you can make it so that it runs perfectly every time and executes what your business needs, and not what someone at VMware thought might be a good idea to execute a workflow or do a task for you. I don't think any businesses are equal, so most businesses will have a certain way they do stuff. You will have certain ways that you differentiate yourself from others, and that is key when you're doing automation, because no one is doing it the same way. We might be using some components, we might be using the same hypervisor, we might be doing the same flows, but some do it one way, some do it another way, some over-provision hard on their hardware, some don't. These are the rules you need to make VROPS understand, and this is the way you can do automation and make it work for you when you're doing automation. So that brings us to the how. So first off, if we look at how things actually get executed, we start up here by looking at what needed to execute, or what needed to execute trigger an alert, which is what we base our SNMP traps on. So we have a set of symptoms. A symptom can be anything. The best analogy I can come up with is how we diagnose a flu or a cold. There are some symptoms which need to be in place in order for us to say, well, you got the cold or you got the flu. So these symptoms we align, and if you have those symptoms, you have either one of those. The same goes for how we do diagnostics in the data center. So if a VM is running 100%, it doesn't mean that the VM needs to have 20 CPUs more. It just needs that might be doing a lot of workload right now, high workload now. It could be batch related, it could be other reason for it to do a lot of work. But we need to have a way every time we trigger an alert, assure that this alert is not false positive, but is something we need to be, something that's actionable, we need to take action on. And this is where symptoms comes into play. So when the symptoms are all true for that given alert, we fire the alert. It becomes true. It triggers an SNMP trap. Simon talked a bit about filtering, a new thing in, I think it was 6.3. So filtering basically does what we had for emails and stuff like that before, that we could define what we actually needed to send through as SNMP traps. Before we had just anything, so we set up an outbound SNMP adapter, and it sent everything. So we need to do the filtering on the back end, or we need to have something in the middle that does filtering for us. This way, we can do the filtering, so we can say, okay, we only want to focus on health issues. We don't want to focus on risk or efficiency, for instance, or we only want to have critical and not warnings and alerts. Warnings and immediate. So this is crucial to how we actually take action on the alert we have, because there might be some alert where you say, okay, this is not that critical. We really like, well, or at least in the phase where you're going from non-automated to automated, saying, okay, we don't want everything automated at once. So you can start taking small steps and say, okay, if it's really critical, we might start to say, okay, then we have the one to fire, and then we can later on, when we start to trust the automation we have created, we start to go deeper down and trust the analytics and the integration with VROPs. So what happens then is that on the VRO there's a listener, or we set up a listener to listen on the specific ports. We set up the outbound adapter, and then that's sent the SNMP trap over to VRO. There are some scripting here which need to be in place, which looks at the SNMP trap that comes in and figure out what we need to do with them. So this is where we start to do figure out what we want to do. We do some filtering over here, but even though we might not have everything filtered out, we can still do some filtering over here in scripting to figure out what we want to have through or not. Then we can start to kick off a workflow, which will kick off some actions and will essentially do the job we ask it to, or at least that's how we should have our workflow working. So if I just go back a step and look at how we create alerts. So I've just taken an alert. This is called cluster has unbalanced workload. So this is a built-in alert. I chose it because it has multiple symptom sets. So you can see up here, it says if any of these 3 symptom sets, it doesn't say it's true, but it should say, if any of these symptom sets are true, we fire this alert. So you can see between here there's an OR. So this is one symptom set, this is another, and this is another. And the reason they created this one symptom set, the one alert with different symptom set, is that it basically is the same. So they look at different things. So here they look at CPU, here they look at memory, and same for memory here, just consumed is different from demand. So that way we can group things together. So we might not want to create hundreds of alerts. We could, but it might not be that efficient, and we might, when we start to do this, want to just create one, so we have a simple one where we understand what it does, create an alert, say, okay, this is automation alert. Then we know the teams that do look in VROPs that they shouldn't start looking into this problem, because it's a problem which should be handled by the automation and not something that should be handled by humans. So this is one of the key areas where we need to look when we're doing automation with VROPs. We need to make sure we don't do false positives, and that is simply the key. We need to make sure our symptoms are correct and we have them aligned correctly in the alert. So just to understand how SNMP works, this is something I borrowed. We had a session, we had a VROPs user group here in Denmark, and some of the guys created this as part of a project they did. So over there you can say OID, and you can see a list of IDs down there. And this is how SNMP works. So they have this long string of numbers with dots in, and those have different descriptions which were created for this Excel spreadsheet. to make sure we understand what it actually the different IDs does. So if you look up here, you can see an ID. If you look here, you can see it has a .64 in, and out here you can see that 64 means it's generated, so it's a new alert. 74 means it's canceled, and 84 means it's updated. So this is crucial when we're looking at automation again. Do we want to have things kick in when when things change? Do we want to cancel workflow when the alert was canceled in VROPs? It might be intermediate alert. Well, we basically should handle intermediate alerts better in VROPs, but it could be that we do have intermediate alerts which could cancel before we get to end our workflow. Should we do something about it if that happens? So these are the things we need to take into account and figure out how we can actually make a workflow that makes sense for the end goal we have. So how do we actually set up the SNMP trapping? So first off, this is how we do it in VROPs. So we have an outbound instance. So we give it a name so we can recognize what it is. So simply here, SNMP for VRO7. We're going to use that later, so give it a good name so you know what it is, especially if you want to do multiple outbound SNMP alerts, outbound SNMP instances. IP, a port, and community. Very simple. This is the filtering. It's called notifications in VROPs, but basically what you can do filtering. So I'll give it a name up here. I've chosen the method. This is an SNMP trap plugin type of notification I'm creating, and this is the outbound adapter I created before. The reason you can choose here outbound adapter here, and you can have multiple. That might be that you want to have something sent to another tool. You might have things you don't want to go through orchestrator, but just want to go directly to your management platform or something, service this system, whatever it is that handles your business. So, like I said, in the old days we didn't have all this. We just have that outbound adapter up there, so everything was sent. Now we're able to filter, so there are different kind of scopes, notification triggers we can do. So we can say we only want health and not risk and efficiency. We can say we only want critical and not info, for instance. So we can make sure we only get what's actually important to automate and not what might be something we can wait for the next day, or might be something we use in the phase of transitioning from manual to automated. Again, down here, we can set some parameters to what state the alert is in. Should it be open, assigned, or suspended? Again, like before we saw in the OIDs, updated, new, or cancelled, and if we have multiple collectors, we can choose which you come from. So that's an option there. So how is it done in VRO? So in VRO, you go and register a SNMP device. So for those who know VRO, it's a simple right-click on. Oh, sorry. It's a right-click on here and say you want to run this, and it comes up and asks you some questions. Afterwards, you should hopefully get something like this where it says it registered. This is then go to list, so you know you have registered a new SNMP endpoint. So you can configure this. So you give it an IP where you want to have SNMP from. You give it a name. You choose a port. You choose a version, and choose what community it has. Basic stuff. So in order to have VRO, so we created now a listener. We want to have it running all the time. So we're going to apply what's called policy. So under administration, we can find the SNMP trap I created, and you can see apply policy. And what it does, it makes sure that we have get a policy here where we can start the policy, meaning we have a running policy, so we can listen to the traps coming in. So you can also stop the policy if for some reason you want to not do that, or you could have the basic features of VRO applied to that. This is the same. This is the policy we click on here. This is the scripting part of it. If we click on untap down here, untrap, we can see the scripting part. This is some of the basic stuff that comes with it. This is where we need to figure out what things we want to have as part of our flows. What filters do we need, so fields do we need to has as part of the flow we're going to use for automate our workflow. Just to talk a bit more about SMP traps. This is an element. This is element 11. I chose one because there was a lot of good stuff in it. This is basically the alert we have here with the ID, and we can see what's in it, what is triggered based on. So we have some symptoms here. We have a no IOPS. We have a symptom down here called what is it? Not heartbeat not receiving, and there's a one called network packet no network packet transmitted. So these are some flows, something I played with to figure out how to catch blue screen of death on Windows boxes. So these things you can monitor on, and these things are part of the SMP trap that got sent to you. So you will be able to filter based on the OID. You say, okay, this OID comes with information for the alert and what is triggered based on. So when we start to talk, well, the reason why we want to talk about VRO and not do what somebody else created for us is we want to have it aligned with our business. So most businesses have special requirements, that need to attend, and this is really why we are there, why we're not throwing anything out in the cloud of some service, because we want to have something that is unique for some reason to the business, that makes the business run as desired. So this is the workflow. So when this workflow is triggered, first of all, it goes up here and, well, all the names are cut, unfortunately, but it takes ownership of the case in VROPS. So it sends an SMP, and uses the REST API in VROPS to take ownership of the case. Again, so we know that somebody else isn't going to work on the case. There's no reason to have multiple people working on something. So first off, we take ownership. And this, we create a case in our services system. So we have I don't know what people use, service manager or whatever, where it does interact with that and create a case. This is for people who use an item, for instance, which want to have the flow, the structure, and documented what's done. As this flow is going to do stuff to our environment, as ITIL prescribed it, we need to do a standard change, or hopefully it's a standard change, or else you wouldn't automate it. So it creates a standard change in the service system. This flow is about creating a new data store in case we run full on a data store cluster. So next up is creating a LUN on the array. We need to create some zoning. Might need to create some zoning. We need to add the LUN to a storage group, so we're able to see it in VMware. We add the data store we add data store. We move it to the data store cluster. Then we rescan to make sure it's on all nodes. This is these are pre-built workflows which are already in there. So you see this one, it scans the whole data center. If you have a large data center, well, this can't really be used. So you need to create your own or variation of this at least. But this is the power, some of the power that comes with VRO, that you have workflows which you can just use and reuse for certain cases. So lastly, this hopefully all went well. So it's going to update the standard change and close it. It's going to update the case and service system and close it. And it's going to cancel the alert in VROPS. And as you can see here, in all the red lines, in case something went wrong, we create a problem case in our Thursday system. So in case our automation failed for some reason, we want to have a knowledge of what went wrong. So in this case, it creates a problem case, so we can have manual focus on it afterwards. And then it throws an exception over here. This is what I talk about with, it needs to be aligned with business. You could say that you could skip all, you say you could skip all the stuff up here, because who needs that, and just do this. But your business probably want you to do tracking of what's happening. They probably just don't want you to do automation and everything, and then have no audit trail of what's happened and why it happened. This way you get aligned with the normal business audit trails, and you follow the normal procedures and processes of how you actually should be able to do automation. Do business processes, and the same goes for automation. So I chose this little picture here, perpetual engine, because that is probably the scenario where you fear the most when doing automation, that we create something. Simon talked a bit about it earlier for those who were in that session, that he created a VM. He had a VM. It gave him multiple CPUs. It dropped some CPUs. He gave it more. He got more. He did back and forth. And at some point, VROPS thought, well, it needs 11 CPUs. And it failed for some reason, because you didn't have enough physical CPUs. The same goes for when you're doing automation. You really want to make sure you're not giving more CPU, and then 10 minutes later, removing the CPUs again. So you want to make sure that what you do is actually based on a business requirement and something you need to be expanded, and not something we just think is a nice to have, because else we end up in a situation where we use more processing power on keeping the wheels running than actually making the business go forward. And that, if we just recap, so the reason we want to do VROPS is we want to have the analytics and the understanding of the data center. So this is crucial. So you could say you could just use VRA or VRO, and you can have some predefined workflows you could put into your vCenter client, the web client. You can have a menu in there. You right-click on it, you can do some stuff. You could do all that's what we do automated. But we don't just want to have the flows. We want to actually do the automation. We want to have the full benefit of doing the flow. So if you only go halfway and only create the VO workflows but don't use them automated, you still have to use a lot of resources on keeping things running instead of moving ahead and making sure that your data center is aligned to your business. And that is basically what it's about. And this is the last slide. What could possibly go wrong? So, well, it's a bit about what I talked before, but when we're doing automation, we need to understand, and I know I said it a few times now, but we really, really need to understand why we're doing it, and for what reason, and that there's a business requirement for it, because else we might end up in. So it's a YouTube video I took this from, and yeah, the vacuum cleaner does run into the poo, and it does get spread out all the floor. So, and that's not nice. And then you end up in a situation where you have to do the cleanup afterwards, and that's not really a situation where you want to go in. So when you're doing automation, go slow at the beginning. Make sure you understand what you're doing, because else you might end up in a situation where you are better off not doing it at all. That was it for me. Any questions?
Yes, I noticed your automation solution uses the SNMP protocol. What version of it does it use?
Well, in this slide it was version 1, SNMP version.
Yes.
Yeah, it was version 1, but it does support 2 and 3. So you could.
3 is highly recommended because.
I understand that. Yeah, this is just easier for me to set up quickly. Yeah. So I was lazy.
Version 1 and 2 stand for security is not my problem, so this can seriously mess up your automation.
I fully understand. Yes, you should absolutely do SNMP version 3 to make sure you have security in place, so you don't open up but you can say that probably ways you could spoof an IP address. So but it does look at IP addresses and the SNMP. So, but yes, use version 3, of course.
Yeah, in version 1, you cannot guarantee the integrity of
No.
or
There are nothing.
neutrality or application.
It's just the package and all the wire, and if somebody tampers with it, yes.
Anyone can have a lot
Yeah.
of fun with it.
Exactly. Anything else? Yeah.
Can you maybe give a few examples of when you've used automation?
Things like creating a new data store. There's something relatively simple, we all understand. There's not a big risk in it, because if we add, let's say, a new 4 terabyte LUN, the chances are that the 4 terabyte LUN gonna be quickly filled up, and we need to add a new one, and then we suddenly remove 4 terabytes of data. Is relatively small. So stuff like creating data stores, but also if you're talking applications, a really good use case is when you're talking about load balancers. So if you have a cluster or something, and you want to have multiple instances and you have a load balancer in front, you could deploy a new set of applications below the load balancer, and then scale out your application without you having the risk of overburdening anything. So that's a really low-hanging fruit as well. Of course, it requires an infrastructure, an application that does use load balancing and stuff like that. So we can't use the old 3-tier models, but the newer type of applications coming out are usually based on having a load balancer in front of them and load balancing between the VMs behind it. And that way you'll be able to do so auto-scaling for applications. So think Black Friday scenario, for instance. So you know you're gonna have a lot of customers coming into the business. So you have the load balancer in front, so that's good. You're gonna catch all the flows, all the requests. And then you just need to scale your backend web applications. And that way you will be able to do that using workflows like that without having a huge risk, because when you're done, you can simply, when the load drops, you can simply remove the applications again, because you can monitor everything upfront in the load balancer layer. So that is 2 simple use cases for doing it. Simon talked about doing CPUs and stuff like that. You can do it, definitely. In Simon's session, I talked to a guy on the way out, and he said, well, we deploy our Horizon VDI VMs today with 8 CPUs, but most people only need 4, but some need 8. So we deploy them with 8. Could we just deploy them with 4, set something in place like this, either this method or the built-in method, and then expand it to 8 CPUs for those who need it, or more CPUs for those who need it? Yes, you could. And the benefit would be that when the system is destroyed afterwards, it starts up as a new 4 CPU VM, and it could scale to whatever the needs are for the given user. So again, if most users in your business are less than 4 CPU usage, which I guess most people are, you'll be fine. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for listening.